Good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. It's the 15th day in the month of July. We're looking up. CPI numbers will be out today. That's inflation numbers. But my name is Jeffrey Uzoma. Welcome, guys.
Indeed, it's a beautiful Wednesday morning for which we're grateful for clement weather. At least there's a respite from the rains.
It doesn't look like
albeit temporarily. No. Welcome. It's the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka.
We're live from our global headquarters here in Lagos, Nigeria. I am Kelly Egia.
Well, Kelly, great job yesterday. The work you did by going out to the descent onto the Kara Bridge, outbound Lagos. Yeah. I was coming to work racing, and I was trying to dodge the usual suspect.
And there was no need to
then
dodge.
I looked left. What's happening here? It's been fixed. Yeah. Some, remedial work has been done to that part. And then as you climb the bridge, as you try to descend the bridge as well, some remedial work has been done. So, good job. Thank you. Whoever did it, whether it's the federal or the state.
I mean, credit to the Ministry of Works, Controller Works. He had mentioned that we were going to do that, and thankfully it has been done. But we know because the rains are here, we cannot, and the heavy-duty trucks on that particular axis, we know that this is just tentative. So we want that they get to do something that will indeed last the test of time. So kudos to Engineer Kamalafe and his team for putting in those measures. But we hope that something substantial is done because of the volume of vehicles that keep plying that particular route.
So, well, millions of Lagosians and indeed Nigerians who ply that. It's an international route.
It is.
Who ply that route every day.
Road in Nigeria,
they have you.
One of the busiest in Africa.
In the continent.
Yeah, they have you to be thankful for, Kelly.
It's the team.
And indeed,
Channels TV.
And indeed the entire Channels Television. But let's also mention.
Just to mention as well.
Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
I mean, the group of young men who live under that bridge, and we must give them some sort of credit. I mean, in this part of the world, we refer to them as Agboro and all of that. But one of the things I saw those guys do yesterday is that they do their best to try to flank down vehicles approaching that bad spot, to say, you know what, take it easy, calm down. So I saw them putting their lives to risks, at risk yesterday, and trying to beckon on vehicles to, you know what, slow down. The portion in front is bad and all of that. So I want to give them some sort of commendation, because they deserve it. I also tried to interview one or two of them about the issues around vandalism and all of that. And they said, you know what, we are not responsible for it. We know the people who are responsible, but we cannot say them. So, thankfully.
Commendations to everyone. So maybe we'll look for another spot and go, and since we have it 24-hour magic.
That's where I'm about to come in. There are two expansion joints just as you approach the Wawa portion of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, just before you get to the OPIC area.
That's the long bridge.
And so those two joints are becoming defective. Yeah, Kelly, it's your route as well, so you would know. So we appeal to the Controller of Works, the Federal Road Maintenance Agency, whoever may be responsible for rehabilitation work on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, to look into that as soon as possible. And then there are a few, perhaps solar-powered panels that provide lighting for that bridge. Not very often, sometimes. We see that those are also becoming defective. Maybe not defective, but maybe they're being vandalized. There should be a more concerted effort, joint efforts by the Ogun State government, the Lagos State government, and the federal government to ensure the protection of these national assets. I mean, yesterday, Kelly, you were talking about not just, that defective portion that has now received some attention, but some bad portions on the median that are being vandalized, and that impact on the integrity of that particular bridge. And so we require more concerted effort in the management of assets on that bridge.
So as a matter of fact, I was driving quite fast, so I couldn't stop to video. So maybe we'll do since we were able to video the bad, when it was bad, we'll do what we can for the when it's now that it's better. But let's tell you, we saw a video online about a man, the security man. I don't know whether our producer is ready with that, where it was dumping. We're complaining about citizens, government, and everybody taking responsibility for the flooding in Lagos. Well, it was raining somewhere, I think around the Ikorodu area, and the video, someone caught a security man, I think of a school, dumping. Just imagine, gentlemen. Dumping refuse into the gutter. Now, this is what clogs the channel and going all the way. So, reaching out to the Commissioner of Environment, Tokumbo Wahab, he said the man has been arrested. He'll be arraigned today in court. So, this is a very irresponsible behavior by anyone who does this. This is not acceptable, guys.
Right there, into the gutter.
Yes.
Jeffrey, he is in uniform, by the way, and possibly is representing an organization. Is he doing this on behalf of an organization? Let's see the inscription on that particular refuse bin. Courtesy, I couldn't see
I think it's just a
the remaining portion. So if he's representing a school, this is a despicable act. It's a poor representation of a school. And, you know, you were talking about some individuals who were responsible for, you know, alerting Nigerians to a bad portion of a road earlier. The individual who has brought this to our attention, we commend the person who has reported this video. And this is what, this makes it difficult to criticize government when citizens don't do their part, when they are not knowledgeable about their part or are irresponsible about what their part is.
All right, we have a packed show, so it's going to be pacey and racy for us this morning. So let's get started with what the papers are reporting. Mr. Ego Ankara will join us in just a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back, everyone. So let's get to pay attention to your national dailies and get to see what the papers are leading with this morning. Mr. Kerry joins us live on the program virtually. Thank you indeed, as always, for joining us here on the program. Perhaps we should begin with this. Nigeria elites with fake agency police grill DG Adeyemi, alleged forged State House documents at center of case. Well, so this is where we are now. That's the latest development. It's a developing story. So he had to allow himself to be arrested. Some would say, look, this man is a very smart man. And there were videos yesterday where he was being asked his name and over again. He said, look, I've told you my name already. But the fact that alleged forged State House documents are the center of the case, many Nigerians are still calling for the resignation, if you may, of the Chief of Staff to the President. What do you say, Mr. Kerry?
Well, I must say this is an unfortunate development. These are very serious distractions to our effort at building a country. One individual is reported to have forged all kinds of documents. But what bothers me really, the papers have, all the newspapers are reporting it for more than 2 weeks now. We have been on this same story. The two topical issues is the rescue of these kidnapped victims from Oriire and in Oyo State, and then this Adeyemi man who apparently is leading all the reports and leading all the stories. For me, I think that there is much more that meets the eye with regards to this gentleman. Yesterday, the Federal High Court, issued a bench warrant for his arrest. And eventually, the Osun State Police Command picked him up where he was said to be hiding in one small location. So clearly, if his hands are so clean, why was he hiding? That is one. Two, so much has been said about, all the agencies of government, from the National Assembly to the office of the Secretary to the federal government to the Federal Secretariat where he had an office, even to the point that he had an access code for the budget line where, he was almost securing a 1.3 billion naira for his office that, he's supposed to have about 300 staff. So there's so much. This is quite embarrassing. I saw the optics, the video the other day where he was, where he was playing host to some foreign nationals. So if not for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I'm sure that this gentleman would have had access to 1.3 billion. Now he's pointing fingers at, at the chief of staff to the president. The ICPC is investigating this matter. For me, like lawyers will say, res ipsa loquitur. The facts almost speak for themselves. He has a letter of appointment purportedly signed by the chief of staff, Femi Gbajabiamila, who is not authorized to employ or appoint anybody. The authorizing officer for appointment after clearance with the president should be the secretary to the federal government. The work of the ICPC is cut out, but this should not distract us so much. Ordinarily, in very serious countries, in 2-3 days, we should be done with this investigation. If the man is found guilty, then he has his day in court. But as it is, we keep dragging and making this a big issue. There are teething problems that this country is grappling with, issues of the economy, poverty, insecurity, debt of infrastructure. We are talking about roads. Of course, one other issue is even the debt of housing. The cost of housing is going up. So many Nigerians can't afford to pay their rent. So there are a whole lot of issues affecting Nigerians. This gentleman's case should almost take the backseat. 3 days, 4 days, they should be done with his investigation, and then we'll know what is happening.
Well, indeed, some would say that this gentleman couldn't have had such access, such participation in government at that level without some insider assistance. And so perhaps it's just as important as other national issues, if indeed he has had access to using taxpayers' funds, to carry out government action. It's an important, part of national conversation. Let's go to other important aspects of national conversation this morning, and what gets our attention is the Guardian newspaper, and it focuses on what affects everyone's pocket. Fuel jumps by 100 naira per litre as Dangote shifts $1.84 billion FX burden to marketers. And of course, this story came through yesterday, citing a review of, the arrangement with the federal government on Forex for Naira for crude. And, that has now led to the pricing of crude and petrol in dollars by Dangote refineries. What are your thoughts on this? Does it make the management of petroleum industry, particularly the downstream aspect, more cumbersome, and the consumers, of course, inevitably carrying the burden of, this dynamics in petroleum management? Mr. Oriire.
Well, very clearly, the issues are very, it's obvious to everyone. If not for Dangote Petroleum Company, by now Nigerians will be having a very hectic period. We'll be suffering more as Nigerians. You can imagine before Dangote came on stream, there were queues everywhere. But with the advent of Dangote, now we have access to fuel, good quality fuel, and then the federal government promised that, perhaps to cushion the effect of, the removal of fuel subsidy, they struck a deal with Dangote Petroleum for this crude to Naira to crude swap. But how has that fared? Clearly, it has not worked. It appears that agreement has collapsed, particularly against the background of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, the war between the United States and Iran. It's been a topsy-turvy affair between the two countries, and that narrow strip of waterway that is supposed to be an international passageway for cargo, has been a very contentious issue since in the last 2 months, and it's been a big problem for us in Nigeria. Anything that happens at the international level, Nigerians always bear the brunt of it. So it always appears as if the government is not prepared for anything, whether it is coronavirus, where if it is electricity, now it is fuel. We got fuel, we remove subsidy on fuel, and look at what has been happening. So for me, nobody can blame Dangote. Dangote is a businessman. He secured his operational funds from the international financial system. I do not know, I'm not a spokesman, I don't work for Dangote. Nobody knows at this point if he has been able to liquidate his loan. So he cannot, Dangote Petroleum was not opened as a charity organization to provide fuel free or maybe subsidized fuel for Nigerians. It is the responsibility of government to work that out with Dangote. Other countries are doing that. Ghana, Tanzania, and other countries are working out a fair arrangement for Dangote, to supply finished products to them. I think at this point, it is now a fundamental duty of government to work out a proper arrangement to cushion the margin effect as a result of the increased pump price of fuel. 100 naira, if you look at that, it is a lot. Already, we're buying for about 1,250 to 300. So as it is now, the price has gone up to about 1,400, 1,450. If it continues at this rate, I doubt if ordinary Nigerians can cope. So this is a big challenge. As I said earlier, there are issues confronting Nigerians, and this is pushing more people into the poverty noose, and the government has a responsibility to intervene very quickly.
Yeah, Mr. Carrier, so in fact, one of the things that crossed my mind is what Bukola always advocates for. Whenever there is an upswing in the price, we see the corresponding increment across export depot price, and then gets down to the consumption point, which is at the petrol station. Now, when there's a downswing, we don't see that level of commensurate decrease. So from Monday, that upswing has been maintained in excess of about 10%. So we're revolving around 77 at the close of day, say on Friday. By now, we're talking about $85 per barrel. So it's a deregulated market. We hope the government can use fiscal measure to help us. But let's look at the Vanguard. Two stories I would like you to speak to. Literally sports for choice. One is above the nameplate. One is beneath the nameplate. I'm not sure whether they've arrived yet, but the one beneath beneath the picture, I should say, the South African returnees recount ordeals. 315 Nigerians return today in final evacuation from the Republic of South Africa. That's according to the federal government's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'd like you to speak to that as well. But then the one above the nameplate is of interest, which is a page 30 read, and this is credited to the SGF, says, why Tinubu didn't call Makinde over Oriire rescue? What do you make of the two stories?
Well, I'll start with the last one. There have been a whole lot of issues between the government and the governor of Oyo State, Sheyi Makinde. Makinde is calling on the the United Nations to intervene by conducting an independent investigation. Well, for me, I've seen the pushback, the whole lot of attacks on the governor by, well, I would say the presidency. Now, the issue, if we put it in perspective, Nigeria is part of the international system. Nigeria is a member of the United Nations. And so if any component unit of the Federal Republic, states, the subnationals, are not satisfied with the way the federal government is handling the internal issues here, what are the options left for a state? So for me, I do not think that the governor of Oyo State has gone overboard to ask the United Nations to conduct inquiries into what really happened with the abduction. There are a whole lot of gaps. There are a whole lot of loopholes in what Nigerians are being told. First and foremost, I give it to our security agencies, the police, the army, the DSS, Security and Civil Defense Corps, and of course, hunters and vigilantes. They did so very well to get these abductees out. But be that as it may, what are the issues here? These individuals were kidnapped from school wearing uniforms. Now they appeared with civilian clothes. Nobody has explained that. The government says that in the course of freeing them, 8 of the terrorists were killed and some were arrested. Nobody has seen the visuals, the video of those arrested and those killed. And so the gaps are there. I do not know why, in coming out with public statements by the presidency, I know a lot of experienced people who are handling who handle public information for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. For example, Bayo Nanuga was my former boss at the News Tempo PM News. He's a very experienced journalist. He's one of the leading lights in the media. But I wonder, since he got into the presidency, the kind of statements that he issues always fall short of public expectation. For example, the issues I've raised, I would have expected that these statements will answer some of these questions. Because when you leave loopholes, when you leave gaps, then you also leave people in doubt about the authenticity of the statement, of the information you're giving out. So those are the issues. So I think the governor of Oyo State, in my view, is not satisfied with what has played out, and he has called on the UN to conduct an independent inquiry. If the government has nothing to hide, I do not think that we should have this kind of pushback. If that is what Sheyi Makinde wants, so be it. Now, with regards to the second issue about, I think I've missed that out now. I mean, please kindly just refresh my memory. Raise a second leg of the question.
Yeah, the ones that are returning from South Africa, the evacuation, the final phase of the evacuation, yeah.
Oh, yes. You see, I've said it severally that, yes, what the South African government has done is an eye-opener for the rest of the continent. They are simply telling other African countries that, look, they want to run their country as an island, that they do not care that nationals who enter their country should leave. Now, the report also showed that even properly documented migrants, they did not renew their papers, so they became affected. I've always said that we need to build Nigeria. We need to build our country. Nigeria is a global power. I'm not even thinking that this country, it is not my argument that Nigeria is a continental power. We have the resources, we have the manpower. I think the problem we have, the challenge we have is that of leadership, that can aggregate all the resources we have in this country, our unique selling point, aggregate them to the advantage of Nigerians and the international community such that we can be respected. We don't have a national carrier, if not for air peace. What are we going to do? How do we get these stranded Nigerians out of South Africa? We don't have a national carrier. We don't have a national shipping line. So these are issues that other countries have dealt with, and that has placed them, as fair competitors at the international level. So governors and government must look at these issues, and address them. Now, with regards to the returnees, well, they just have to rebuild their life. That is what it is. Many Nigerians are out there. South Africa has told us, has slapped us in the face, rather than gloating over what the South Africans have done. Because today too, they are feeling the pinch, because I'm seeing visuals and videos of empty streets, empty business districts in South Africa. With time, in the next 1, 2, 3 months, the South African government is also going to feel the pinch, because Nigeria and South Africa are head to head in terms of the leading economy in the continent. So as it is with this development, if the South African government is unable to address the economic shortfall and the imbalance, then you can see that they will have a very serious economic impact. Nigeria should capitalize on this, provide for the returnees, give them a startup pack for those that are in businesses. I think they can be integrated fully back into our society by the government, giving them some kind of soft loans with regards to the business that they were doing before, and so that they can rebuild their lives back home here. That is, for me, that is the way to go. But this is a wake-up call for the country. The so-called Africa, the centerpiece of our foreign policy, we must jettison that. If you consider that against the backdrop of insecurity, where we open our borders, looking at the ECOWAS protocol on free movement of persons and goods, we need to suspend that so that we block our borders and deal with insecurity that is affecting this country. The idea of playing the big brother to African neighbors, I think that it is time to review that, to go back and review those policies and see where it is hurting us and do the right thing for our country. Now, most countries are placing their national interest first. Look at the United States. It's America first before anybody. Look at what ICE, Immigration, Customs and Enforcement, is doing in the United States. Repatriating immigrants from the U.S. Nigeria, when are we going to also repatriate immigrants? The countries are washed with so many Africans, foreigners, Chinese, Asians, everywhere without documents. And then we allow them, to have a free day in our country. We have to be very serious as a country if we want to, compete within the international system.
I mean, I couldn't have agreed less with you, Mr. Akerha, because indeed, there are even foreigners who have businesses here where there are stories and reports of the inhumane treatment meted upon Nigerians who work in those in those organizations. So I totally agree with you. I think we have to fix our house, as some would say. But let's take a look at the Nigerian Tribune this morning. It leads with something around insecurity. It says, go after other bandits, terrorists nationwide. Senate tells FG. Go after other bandits, terrorists nationwide. Senate tells FG. Cautions Makinde to stop trivializing government's efforts. Your assembly backs governor on call for UN probe. Oriire Hospital discharges 25 out of 39 on admission. What exactly do you think is playing out here, by the way, between the Oyo State's governor and the government at the center?
Well, I said it earlier, the governor of Oyo State is not satisfied with, because if you look at when he visited Bauchi State, the governor said a day after he declared his interest for the presidency, the following day at 9 a.m., these abductions took place. So he's suspecting foul play in the whole, encounter. What has happened, what played out in the 3 schools that were attacked. Well, the Oyo State is a component of the federative unit in Nigeria. Ordinarily, we are running a federal system. The government of Oyo State has the right, to run the affairs of the state as it wishes, if it does not breach, federal rules and regulations. The Senate pushing back on the governor of Oyo State is also understandable. Seyi Makinde is not a member of the APC, and so the Senate is dominated by the ruling APC. So you cannot expect less. The pushback is coming from both the presidency and the Senate. But as I said earlier, for me, I do not see anything wrong with it. It is one thing to make a call on the United Nations, and it's another thing for the United Nations to act. Nigeria's permanent representative to the UN, Jimoh Ibrahim, I read his statement yesterday where he dismissed the Oyo State governor and said that, the UN does not interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. Well, I also fought, the statement by Jimoh Ibrahim. The UN does interfere. If the UN does not interfere, why do we have them interfering in our security? Why is Nigeria calling on other countries for partnership? Asking them to intervene and assist the country. Well, if there is genocide, with what has happened in Plateau State, Benue State, and all that, where the Christian Association of Nigeria, has alleged genocide, and the US and the UN issued a statement calling on the government of Nigeria to do something urgent to address the issues. So these are interventions in different forms. So Nigeria is not an isolated country, it's not an island unto itself. As I said earlier, it's a member of the international system, United Nations. And so whatever happens here has a direct impact on at the global level. So be that as it may, that is just what it is. The Senate, yes, they've made their call. It is another thing for the UN to review what is playing out in Nigeria and take a stand. But as it is also part of the exercise of the independence of the subnationals in a federative unit. When the current president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was governor of Lagos State, he pushed back on then President Olusegun Obasanjo with regard to the creation of more local governments. I think he created 27 development areas, which he wanted to transit to local government areas. And then President Olusegun Obasanjo didn't approve, but Governor Tinubu at the time, as he was then, insisted that those development areas would run, and they still ran. I saw there was a lot of pushback at the time, even on the political front. When Obasanjo tried to take over the Alliance for Democracy, he had a meeting with them. All governors in the Southwest, fell into the trap. It was only Tinubu that escaped it. So that is an assertion of the independence of the subnational components of the country. Yeah, so in my view, Seyi Makinde has not heard so much, and it's like calling a dog a bad name to hang it. I have also said that as a journalist, I've seen loopholes in this public statement that was issued by government. For example, between what time did the abductees change into civilian clothes? They were looking quite shabby when they were released, apart from Mrs. Alamu, who looked very traumatized. And of course, the 8 terrorists that were killed, nobody saw them. Those that were arrested, we've not heard from them. There is no interview. If it were to be in the US and some other societies, even the operation itself would have been captured, live. And then, of course, those arrested, you will see them on television. Those who attacked, the individual that attacked President Donald Trump, who fired gunshots at him. We saw what happened. The gentleman was arrested and paraded. That is how to run a transparent system, devoid of, public sentiment. So I think the government needs to do more. The actions of government must be open, must be transparent, so that to shut the door against some of these criticisms that are coming out.
Well, spot on there, Mr. Akerha. I mean, I like that idea, the live transmission of such operations. I remember when Osama bin Laden, I think, was killed, and it was live on TV around the world, and, you know, we saw the U.S. display a lot of professionalism there at its best. So we want to see, I mean, I also agree with those points you have made. But must anchor at this point, thank you indeed, as always, Mr. Igwe Akerha is a member, Nigerian Guild of Editors. Thank you indeed for your time on the program.
It's always a pleasure, Kelly, and the rest of the team. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, Mr. Akerha has raised some really pertinent questions around the Oriire abduction and, of course, eventual or subsequent rescue. And we have someone here who would provide us some of what perhaps played out behind the scene. The DSS that was speaking to us this morning about that particular rescue operation, because it was the DSS who provided, according to reports, the intelligence that was used for that particular operation. This is the Morning Brief. We're back in just a moment. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. Before we get to the conversation around national security, let's bring in our colleague, Bukola Oriire, who is our correspondent in your state. Of course, Oriire has been in the news because of the Oriire incident. Bukola, good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief. I don't know where you are, so maybe you tell us exactly where you are. And what's the latest update just hours or days after these children have been released? Because there's been a back and forth in terms of rhetorics between the governor and the Senate yesterday is called for the international community to join in the investigation because maybe suspect something fishy.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Good morning. It's actually been a journey up to this point. It's in the public domain. Everybody knows what's been going on. 56 days in captivity, and now they are free. From what the governor said, even before those victims got freed, we've been having a lot of back and forth, sabotage, suspicions of sabotage here and there. There's been a lot of innuendos, you know. I think it's one of the reasons why the governor said what he said, that he who wants to come to equity must do so with clean hands. So inviting the international community who are actually not in the picture here, who are independent of everything going on, to come and investigate and tell us, perhaps, maybe that will shed more light into the root causes of the problems that we're really having in the country. The other bloc is saying it's detrimental to our security architecture because of the truth. Every arsenal that should be deployed was deployed to actually free these pupils and their teachers. Sadly, we lost some people, we had casualties. But then, on the whole, it's a victory, not just for your state, but for Nigeria itself. And I think this is perhaps, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, this is perhaps the first time that we're having a synergy across the board, you know, involving all area of the military and the paramilitary, everybody coming to work as one, you know, without minding where anybody comes from. Everybody saw it as a national tragedy if those people were not freed, and they worked in accordance with that. So this back and forth between, well, the State House of Assembly also put their weight behind Governor Makinde yesterday, that they stand by him and his stance on this issue. The National Assembly is saying otherwise. Well, the days ahead will actually tell us what will happen in this space, but I'm sure it's a developing story, and it's not going to quiet down just yet.
Well, very apt trail from beginning to where we are currently on the matter of the Oriire abduction and eventual release. But perhaps this is also good time to find out how the pupils and their teachers are doing. There are quite a number of reports about, the commitment of the government to their welfare. But we're also hearing that parents may not, as a result of, naturally, the fear of security, return their children to that school. So what updates do you have for us as far as that is concerned, and developments around Oriire, the school, and security in that area, and of course updates about the pupils and their teachers?
Thank you very much. Any normal person will know that these are valid concerns, especially on the part of parents and even the pupils themselves. It's hard to say right now how hard they were impacted, on how much rehabilitation will have to be carried out on every single one of them. The impact it has had on them, nobody knows. But the days ahead will, tell us that. But as far as their physical health is concerned, 31 of them, comprising 25 children and the 6 adults, I beg your pardon, making 31 people, have already been discharged yesterday to their parents, to their loved ones. They're holding on to 8 of them. I spoke with the CMD of Lautech last night, Professor Lakulei, who told us that the children who are still in their care are being observed, not because they have very serious issues, but because they have to be sure that they're stable before, they're let go. And this concern of rehabilitating them and doing therapy for them is something that I have asked Professor Alonge yesterday, who was actually in charge of them before he handed over to Lautech. And he did tell me that the Oyo State government has made a lot of, has strategized, on how these people will have therapy going forward. It will be difficult because of where their, their habitats are. Across 3 communities, we have Yawata, Ahorodada, and Esiele. Coming from that place to Lautech or wherever they would be receiving care would be a Herculean task for them. Apart from the fact that there are security concerns, it's a very far distance. So he told me that the government has made arrangements to be transporting these caregivers, the therapists, the psychologists, to them where they are residing, to make sure that their parents are enlightened, the children themselves are better sensitized and assured that
Bukola,
there's nothing wrong with them going to school, because that place is, hello?
Yes. I mean, we are totally out of time, but maybe just in 20 seconds or less, there's that controversy around...
It's actually drizzling here too.
Oh my word. So, just before we let you go, I know it's a big day as well in Oyo State. The handover, I'm not sure if it's a ceremony now, but walk us through what exactly are walk us through that handover yesterday. How did it play out?
What?
The handing over, how did it play out yesterday?
Well, it was actually seamless.
All right.
They moved very late in the night, of course, guarded with very heavy security. And by the time they got to Lautech, I learned that the Shawo of Bomosho, was at hand to receive them. And of course, their parents were there, to rejoice with them, to be sure that their children were there. The only downside we had was Deacon John Olaleye's wife, who unfortunately just heard that her husband was also killed in captivity during the broadcast by the governor, because she actually thought the man was returning with them. So that was just the dampening moment, that people had yesterday. But apart from that, it was seamless.
Bukola, thank you for your reporting. We appreciate you. We'll keep tab with you for any development as far as this is concerned. But let's switch gears now to bring in our guest, Mohammed Ngoshe. He's the Assistant Director General. He's now retired. He worked with the DSS. Mr. Ngoshe, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning, sir, and thank you for having me. And thank you, Nigerians, for expressing so many appreciations to the DSS and other security services for the successful resolution of the Oriire school abduction saga. Thank you.
All right, we're going to come to the Oriire saga in just a moment, but let's walk back a little bit because, in fact, one of the first questions on my mind would have been, we understand certain persons were arrested during this incident, others were neutralized. So this is day 3 afterwards. So I'm wondering whether there's an update as to the arraignment. But my producer may be able to put up in between all of this some of the successes that the DSS had recorded in terms of conviction. I looked at the list. There are certain high-profile individuals that have been arrested. In fact, we understand that some of the things that led to the standoff for these 56 days was to the effect that they wanted some of their commanders, Ansaro, for instance, which is affiliated with Al-Qaeda, which is a breakout of the Boko Haram, the Ansaro people, wanted some kind of an exchange, and the federal government said, no, it's not going to happen. And then it led to all of this. But where I'm going to in my question is, talk to us about what measure is being taken to be able to get some of the hardcore evidence that we present in court to help us nail some of these terrorists that we have been able to nail. I look at the list in June 2026 alone, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 convictions already secured by the state services on behalf of the federal government.
Thank you. The process of getting those people arrested and prosecuted to the point that they have been successfully convicted and sentenced tells you that hardcore evidence must have been obtained. It's a product of several months of surveillance, technical operations, counterintelligence operation on certain targets to assist the operation, exploitation of sources and assets of the service. All these culminate in the successful arrest in the first place, then prosecution. You know, the courts cannot be twisted just by mere words. They have to have concrete evidence to rely upon to convict anybody, especially in criminal cases where the standard of proof is actually beyond reasonable doubt. And in this case, they are terrorists, their activities are criminal, so the standard of proof is very, very high. So the service must have actually done so much in the background before those convictions were secured. And the process entails a lot of security, intelligence operation, exploitation of available assets, surveillance, technical activities that will yield to some of the things that they think that are hidden and people cannot get to them and all that.
So just before we leave the Oriire matter, to trail on what our newspaper guest had talked about, where he questioned the seeming lack of transparency in the operation, because we have not seen bodies of terrorists that were neutralized. We have not seen an interview conducted with the suspected now kidnappers of the Oriire pupils and teachers. As a matter of fact, there are suggestions in the media that some of the terrorists may have abandoned the pupils, you know, before the operation. And so the suggestion that this particular success story has weakened Ansaro may not be true. So from where you stand, and perhaps if you have insider information, can you talk to us about this lack of transparency in the process and the need for more reassurance that indeed, if they have neutralized terrorists, if they have arrested terrorists, that that is the case, and subsequently we'll be seeing more transparency?
Transparency, that's why it's a security operation. It is not an operation that is supposed to be carried out on the pages of newspapers or on radio or television stations. If you permit me, you give me time, I will take you through the operation. In the first place, the terrorists chose the Oriire school abduction for a purpose. The purpose is to pressure the government to release their leadership that have been arrested and are being prosecuted by the service, especially counting on the fact that the president is a Southwesterner and the media in Nigeria is inclined toward the Southwest, so there will be a lot of pressure, and that is good for them. Unfortunately for them, that was not to be, because the service went into other activities, especially the arrest of their own their own assets, like their parents, their wives, their children. All of them are collaborators. Don't mistake me. It is not just picking them for the sake of picking. All of them are collaborators. So they are all subject to be picked and interrogated. Upon this happening, the terrorists now opened communication with the service and asked what needs to be done. And they gave those conditions. Those conditions were denied flatly. And the terrorists now were put under pressure. The pressure was transferred from government to them, and they had to now look for a way out. They knew that if anything happens to these children, their own people who are in custody will also suffer the same fate. So the option of killing any of them was out of the issue. Now the problem to them was how to resolve the matter amicably. Amicably in the sense that they wanted a lifeline. And that lifeline did not come because the security forces did not accede to it. In between, there was a congregation of security forces. That is the synergy I had somebody talking about in the last clip. There was a congregation of security forces, and positions were taken after the location was isolated. And the whole community around that place was dominated. They were denied access to food. They were denied access to weapons. Informants, their informants were taken out and used as assets. Videos of all these operations were ferried to them, and they saw that they had no option than to surrender. It was in the process of closing in on them after they were encircled that the three forces from the police, army, and other security services that were lost through IED. They marched on IED and they were killed. So getting to the level where they were to be annihilated completely, they gave out the children, thinking that that will resolve the matter. After the children were successfully resolved, the forces engaged them. Unfortunately for them, all of them were all surrounded. They were engaged. Some of them were eliminated, and about 4 of them were critically wounded and picked, and the other ones among them were picked with the minor injuries. The 4 of them that were critically injured died in hospital, while the other ones are being processed to be prosecuted. So it is not an issue of transparency not being there. At every stage in operation, there are steps that needs to be taken. At the right time, if time permits, the nation will see every detail of what has happened. After all, the thing has now become a matter of public public interest. So it is not going to be swept under the carpet for whatever reason. But I think the time is not right for all these kind of comments to be made on the operation. I think we should be eulogizing the state services, and other security services for doing what they have done and doing it very well.
All right, Mr. Ngoshe, well, I mean, I'm not sure a lot of Nigerians may agree with your position, because by the time you're ready to let Nigerians know or see, you know, because there's that trust deficit, there's that trust gap between Nigerians and those who are on the other divide. But my question to you is, what this has painted is that it looks like when the DSS, the army, when they are ready to work, they can work and achieve results. So you have said that you have given reasons as a basis as to why this perhaps would have been a soft target, because Mr. President is Southwest and the politicking around it and all of that. But there are those who will be wondering, so if the DSS has this kind of intelligence or intelligence gathering and capacity, how come in Borno State there have been mass abductions there as well? In Plateau State, we've been seeing these kind of attacks as well, Benue State. So how come we have not seen this kind of performance from the DSS and other military servicemen, you know, get to work? Because there are also mass abductions as well in the north.
You are right, there are mass abductions, but first of all, I want to address the issue of trust deficit. Nigerians, please, you should learn to trust your servicemen. These people are working hard and they are achieving successes in their own way. For every successful operation that you see against Nigeria, more than 5 to 10 such operations must have been foiled. And these are no easy successes to achieve. So the issue of trust deficit should please be closed. Nigerians should align with their servicemen. They should cooperate with them, give them time, give them understanding, and give them all the necessary cooperation that they need to be able to do what they have done. Be that as it may, coming to mass abductions in Borno and other locations in the country, I want you to understand that every case, every security operation, every case has its own dynamics. What happened in Oriire might not be the same as what is happening in Borno. And those dynamics that I told you, the political aspect and other considerations that weighed on the minds of the terrorists to go into Oriire are not the same considerations given to the issue in Goza. I am from Goshe, and Goshe was attacked. A lot of our people are still in captivity. Our circumstances are completely different from what happened in Oriire. DSS has capacity, but every operation has to be approached depending on its own dynamics, in all its own difference. Look at the situation in Plateau, for example. A lot of people are saying, why are there no intelligence on them? The problem in Plateau, if you look at it critically, has a lot to do with the retaliatory attacks. When you attack a Biro man and kill him, as a Fulani man, you should know, without anybody giving you intelligence, that you are going to be attacked by Biro people. And if a Biro man should attack a Fulani community, raise them to the ground and kill their people and rustle their cows, nobody needs to tell you that they are going to come after you. So these are the differences that Nigerians have to know regarding the kind of operations that was carried out in...
Yes, if I may comment, points well noted. When we talk about trust deficit, it's quite huge. But to whom much is given, they say much is expected as far as the conversation. So you can see the list of some of the convictions that have been secured by the DSS and the federal government by extension. My question is about what has to happen to make our security agencies to be as independent as possible to do their work? Because what was demonstrated, even though it was late, but they say better late than never, in Oriire, shows that, as my colleagues have said, they have the capacity. I mean, the military, the security agencies, including the secret police, everybody has that capacity if there is sufficient support to make them do their work. So the bigger question will be, what stops them from being effective? So if you were to recommend, you've almost become a director general of the DSS by virtue of where you retired from. You can, I'm sure you will know that there are political interferences sometimes in these things, and there are political implications. How do we insulate our security agencies from doing their work from politicians and the political encumbrances so that they can deliver and make our country not to be playing field for the Ansaros and the Lakrawas and the Boko Harams of this world, because it's exhausting?
Thank you. That's a very good question. The whole thing boils down to leadership of these services. I am a DSS retiree. I can speak for the DSS. I knew the DG way back in time when we started as young officers. He has been an operations man through and through. So he knows the implication of allowing political considerations to outweigh security considerations. His interest is the security. His calling is the security. His expertise is the security. So anything that will jeopardize security is not in his own interest, and he does not accede to that. So that will be the starting point. Have the right leadership for these services. Secondly, the general populace of Nigeria. Like I said, rally around your services, your servicemen. Doing those things is not something that can be done with the snap of a hand. There are things that take a lot of time. It requires a lot of assets. It requires a lot of time to do surveillance, to gather information, to even get the necessary relevant contacts and assets to be used in getting some of those things. So it is a whole lot of activities that requires a lot of understanding on the part of Nigerians. This practice of once anything happens and everybody goes to the high heavens to call for immediate action, release this, do that on the security is not helping matters. It is not done like that. If it were that easy, no Nigerian will be in captivity for any reason. But believe you me, a lot of effort needs to be put into it, a lot of understanding on the part of Nigerians needs to be given. Then on the part of the politicians, security has no distinction between politicians and non-politicians. All that you can have as a politician, if you are a high-profile politician, is maybe a security detail. How many of them can protect you? If they protect you, what of your people? What of your community?
Yeah, my apologies. Because of time, I did tell you we're racing against time today. We're going to have further conversation about this nexus between the political class and some kind of independence of our security agencies to do their work, because I think we have the history to show that they have the capacity to do their work if they're allowed to do their work. They've demonstrated it. They have the times when they drop the ball, and we'll be very critical of them those times. But when they do well, we commend them. But we must thank you. Mohammed Ngoshe, former Assistant Director General, now retired, of the Department of State Services. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you for coming on the program, sir.
Thank you so much.
Bukola.
Yes, indeed, a very productive conversation by every level, something that we could expand and, of course, explore again in the near future. But from there, let's head to another equally important conversation. What is the value of polls that test and showcase voter pulse and sentiment ahead of the elections? How does it significantly impact on voter outcomes and indeed results of the elections when the elections actually take place. Very important conversation, especially with a history of what polls have said as against what have actually played out at the elections. Let's have this next conversation on a certain voter poll survey that has been carried out by SBM Intelligence. And joining us this morning on the program is Mr. Ikemesit. I hope I get his name correctly. Ikemesit. Yes, thank you, Jeffrey and Kelly. Mr. Ikemesit Effiong, Managing Partner, SBM Intelligence. He's right here in our Lagos studio. Mr. Effiong, good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Before we begin to explore the details of the poll carried out by your organization, I'd like you to talk to us about your organization, because it's also part of the conversation. When you recall the polls that were carried out ahead of the 2023 election, the identity of the organization also came into the conversation somewhere along the line with questions around the interest of the organization. So let's start from there. Who is SBM Intelligence and what's the interest?
So SBM Intelligence is a geopolitical risk advisory. We use data and research, mostly socioeconomic research, right, to advise clients, but we also do a lot of public reporting, right, that the general public consumes around key aspects of Nigeria and increasingly West Africa's socioeconomic situation. We have a well-followed, for example, cost of living report, the Jollof Index, that we've been publishing since 2015, right, and the likes. We've done rankings of, for example, public health preparedness, ranking each Nigerian state in our health preparedness index. So we have a lot of sort of well-regarded and well-followed reports, including by the media, right.
And so what's the interest this time around on voter sentiment ahead of 2027?
Well, it's something we've done in past cycles, right? I'm an avid follower, right, of your show. I watch it every morning, right? And I know that you have a Rolodex of politicians, political actors, people who are interested in the elections and asking Nigerians to put their faith in them, right? And those conversations in the lead up to 2027 are all good and relevant, but we felt it would be good to add a quantitative understanding that basically just picks the pulse of Nigerians themselves about how they're feeling about the general state of the country, what they think about the candidate choices on offer, and what issues they think are the most important issues that will shape their choices come January 2027. So that's why we put together the voter sentiment tracker. We've done the first wave. We hope to do a couple more in the lead up to the elections, and it's basically to track the headspace of Nigerians as developments such as Oriire and the various party primaries and other key national, governing items sort of shift and potentially change, people's perceptions of how the polity is doing and which sort of candidates they feel are best placed to take Nigeria forward.
So let's delve into that report. I imagine that issues around insecurity and the economy perhaps would have dominated what Nigerians are saying. Tell us about it.
Yes, they did, right. So according to the voter sentiment tracker, right, something like 45% of Nigerians say insecurity is their chief concern. And what's interesting is that we did this polling in late March into early April. So this actually predates Oriire, for example. So I would imagine that those numbers may be even higher right now. A further 30% of Nigerians say that the economy, right, is a major issue for them. So when you combine the twin pressures of insecurity and the economy, something like 70+%, almost 80% of Nigerians, right, say those are their chief concerns, right, in the lead up to the elections. What was also quite interesting was that that was consistent across geopolitical zones, across gender, demographics, across income, across age, right? Yeah, so there's, clear concurrency right across the country that insecurity and economy are the leading issues that are shaping how Nigerians will view, their ballot choice in 2027.
Absolutely. So I'm trying to get my producer to put up some of the numbers and the data so that we can appreciate what you're talking about, because the kind of data you put out can generate controversy, but But the most important thing is that we're discussing it. So I want to read how Nigeria may vote is how you caption this particular one in your voter sentiment tracker. The rider in that sense is what I want to look at. The rider, hunger, insecurity, and political chaos grip Nigeria. SBM First voter survey shows Tinubu is weak, Obi is popular, but turnout will decide. Explain that liner for us.
Yeah, so what was clear, right, from the data, right, with the reports was that...
You can also give us a sample size so that we appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, sure, right. Okay, yes. So we polled Nigerians in 8 states across all geopolitical zones and the Federal Capital Territory. So these 9 states and territories are the states that we've done the most polling and the most sampling for. They are our Jollof Index states. They are states where we've been collecting socioeconomic data of various kinds over the last 13 to 14 years. They are the states that we have the best understanding, right, for. In previous election cycles, we've done a complete nationwide service, right, where we've polled Nigerians in all of the 36 states as well as the Federal Capital Territory. We felt it would be good to get an indicative sense in the states that we have sort of the best understanding of what Nigerians, right, are thinking about with respect to the elections. So that's on the sample size. In terms of turnout, what our respondents, right, said in this report is that they are very motivated. So these are likely voters, people who have their PVCs, people who are above 18, people who are, legally empowered to vote, right, in this cycle. And what a lot of them are saying is that they intend to come out to vote. Now, as political researchers, right, we have the benefit of hindsight and experience. We had the recent off-cycle elections. We had the 2023 general elections. We had the 2019 elections. Turnout has been very low. So the fact that people are self-reporting that they are going to come out to vote is not in and of itself indicative of that reality actually panning out in 2027. So what we did with the report was we built out 2 likely scenarios. A high turnout scenario where the opposition is very competitive. The leading opposition candidate, Peter Obi's approval ratings are sky high, right, in that regard. And then a low turnout scenario, which not only in Nigeria, but right across the world, tends to favor incumbents. So even though the president's net favorability ratings, right, are low, and they're actually the lowest of all of the major candidates, right, who are running in this cycle, a low turnout scenario, right, still portends good for the APC and for the president. So those were the 2 scenarios we built out. So
you're saying that with a high turnout, the chances of the opposition upsetting the election is higher.
Yeah.
With a low turnout, the incumbents will hold sway.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
So, again, I return to past polls. The one conducted by ANAP ahead of the 2023 election allocated 23% to, at the time, the LP presidential candidate, about 13% to the incumbent, who, by the way, turned out to be victorious at the election, and then 10% to the candidate of the PDP at the time, Atiku Abubakar. So with the turnout of the actual polls, compared with this, what does it say about the integrity of the polls conducted by the agency, in this case yours, ANAP, or the integrity of the elections itself?
I'm not certain that. I'm not certain that polls should necessarily be used as a barometer to test the efficacy or the legitimacy of the elections. Like I always like to put it, the ultimate poll is the election, right? Also, polls are a measure of a snapshot of people's understanding in time. That target is always a moving target, right? There are things we actually saw this, right, in the data gathering, for example, for the VST, where in the initial stages when there were conversations amongst all of the opposition parties around putting together a grand coalition, Peter Obi and Rabi Kwankwaso were still members of the ADC at the time. From our real-time data collection, the ADC was seen as the most favored party. But literally after what happened within the ADC, right, happened, and Peter Obi and Rabi Kwankwaso obviously left. That sentiment shifted, and I think that's something to recognize, right, on for your viewers, which is that polls shouldn't necessarily be seen as prophetic. Polls should be indicative of the level of work that current political actors have put into trying to convince Nigerians, and what essentially the mark or the passing grade or the grade, right, that Nigerians are allocating to various political leaders are, and that grade is likely to shift. There are so many things that happen during a political season, you don't need me to tell you that, obviously, right, that can move and shift sentiments. And so a poll, and that's why we plan to do this in waves, this is the first wave, right, can easily a candidate can easily rise and fall depending on the kind of developments, right, that are occurring at any given time.
So let me really follow up. So what in between the time, after the time that the poll had been conducted and the elections, what punctures the results of the polls that there's a surprising different outcome at the actual elections and what the polls tells us? What are the factors?
Well, so the key things would be, what are the issues that are animating Nigerians? And that's why we spent a significant amount of time, right, asking Nigerians what are the most important issues for you. Just to take another issue, right, for example, Nigerians are very concerned about the potential impact of artificial intelligence, right? We know that with the rise of misinformation, deep fakes out there, people using AI tools to create narratives that are obvious, that have the obvious effect, right, of shifting sentiment, the favorability ratings of candidates, the way Nigerians view political parties are likely to shift significantly. And Nigerians are increasingly taking to social media, right, as their primary source of news. According to our findings, 52% of Nigerians, right, have social media as their main source of news, right, followed by television and radio, although those are a significant distance behind. So those are sort of the critical things that I think, from my perspective, would be more interesting to look at. But obviously, politics is a contest. Everyone is looking at the names, the political parties, and the likes. But I think those are the things that will shift sentiments.
Yes, let's stay with this, the issue of let's stay with this map and then the issues around insecurity, Mr. Ifeong, because I want to probe even further. You have said that, from what I've read, that in terms of payment of ransom, for instance, it has skyrocketed, I think, to about 750% between 2023 and 2025. Yeah. But the government will always say no ransom was paid. This is Oriire, for instance. They say no ransom was paid. And other ones, let's not go there. But because I know that you guys always spotlight issues, I remember I was doing a particular story around kidnappings and I had to reach out to you guys for data. What have you discovered? Because the government keeps saying we don't pay any ransom. But what are you seeing? What are your discovery?
Ransom payments are still a significant part, unfortunately, of Nigerians trying to secure the release of their loved ones. We have a report we publish every year called the Economics of Kidnapping Industry, and when we first published that, I believe in 2021, that was when we first realized that these ransom payments had reached near industrial levels. There's a level of sophistication and art that a lot of these groups have brought to play, and I think the conversation with the former assistant deputy director was very was very instructive in that regard. I understand the sentiment of the government in terms of not wanting to openly posture that these things actually occur in order not to offer an incentive to these groups. But the question that organizations like ours, as well as others who do this work, would always ask is, if this activity was not as lucrative as it clearly is, we would not be seeing an escalation in the number of incidents, in the scope, in the breadth of attacks, in the geographic distribution of attacks. There's no part of the country which has been spared the brunt of this, and the only logical explanation is that this is a very, very financially lucrative enterprise. It's worth noting that Oriire's very unique in that the level of public interest and the level of government support at both the federal and the subnational level in terms of supporting the families to secure the release of their loved ones is atypical for most kidnapping incidents that we find in Nigeria. The vast majority of them go under the radar, or they are in the news spotlight for a very limited or for a very short amount of time, and the families essentially are left to fend for themselves. This is not to say that ransoms weren't paid, right? In this instance, it's still too early, right, to say in that regard. But it would be very, very surprising, right, that if ransoms weren't paid, at the very least for a majority, right, of incidents of this kind. And it would be very interesting that if it wasn't paid in this particular instance. Wow. But we're still speculating.
Indeed, a very expansive survey, more like a sponge, absorbing many issues. I'm reading here that the NDC's vote share jumps from 32% in a low voter turnout scenario to 65% in a high turnout scenario. Yeah. And zones with high turnout intention is strongest. Southeast 87.4%, South 82.9%. If you're interested, you just may want to find it somewhere on Google, SBM Intelligence Voter Intention Survey, and then you get all of the details. I wish we could explore this particular one with you, but we must anchor at this point, and thank you for coming. We look forward to further conversations with you on other surveys carried out by your agency. Mr. Ikemesit Effiong is the managing partner, SBM Intelligence. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me. Absolute pleasure.
And so we're not quite done yet with security-related issues, as we'll be having this next one on the state police subject coming up after this break. Join us again.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. Just before we get into that conversation around states policing and the role of traditional rulers, of course, we'll be joined by the Olofi of Ishere, who plays a really very prominent role so long as that conversation is concerned. But that's the moment. Let's quickly cross over live to the UK and have a very short conversation with Mr. Steve Babaiko, as the creative partner, Naihoto Welcome Home Project. And that's because they are doing something really remarkable for Nigerians who have been evacuated from South Africa. Mr. Babaiko, well, thank you indeed to you and your team for putting this together. But talk to us about the program and why are you doing this?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really privileged to be here. First and foremost, I must give huge credit to the Director General of Naihoto, Dr. Abisoye Fagade, because when the mob, the anti-immigrant mob in South Africa, gave the June 30 deadline for Nigerians to return, he felt that, look, as the regulator of personnel working within the hospitality and travel space, it was important for us to be able to welcome our people back home. So the anti-immigrant mob in South Africa used certain words to say, go home. And what we simply did was take those words of hate and convert it into welcome home to our people so that they'll come home and be able to have a very good reception when they get back here. Mm.
All right, so how does it work? I mean, so that others who are returning or those who perhaps are yet to return, how does it work? How does one qualify for it?
It was a pilot scheme, actually, and we're still actually measuring all of the numbers and the statistics, because what we did, I mean, there's one way of doing it where people will just come home and they will be working as victims into their own country. But the other way, which the DG actually did inspire us to be able to pursue, is to see that we welcome our people, they feel hope, they have their head held up straight. So we had this welcome corridor for them. So instead of walking into your normal corridor, they had these welcome corridors. We had this returnee card that helps us to be able to gather data about them. And then we had a help desk there where for people who have skills, who have crafts will be able to collate all of those numbers and see how we do a perfect integration into the Nigerian society. And I think that is really, really brilliant. And most importantly, for the team, both the Naihoto team and all of the team from our side that was involved in this project, we know we're in the rainy season now in Lagos, and it was a heavy downpour that day, but that downpour was not able to stop our people from welcoming Nigerians back home.
Let's expand it further, Mr. Babaiko. As I'm looking at you, my brain is juggling between knowing you as a brand expert and what you're talking about now, so I'll restrict myself to this conversation. And that is because I want to talk about data points from the variables you've looked at, from the people that have returned, in terms of what you've seen, the conversations you've had with them, and what they had to go through, the losses they had to record, and what is maybe considered a uphill task for them to be able to reintegrate. What kind of support do they require that will give them the barest minimum to get their heads above the waters?
The most important one was just even the welcome, the reception that they got. As soon as you drive out of the airport, you saw this huge billboard saying "Welcome home." It made them feel seen. But I mean, beyond all of that, I think we're still collecting all of the data and all of the numbers we have gathered at during the exercise, which, like I already said, was a pilot test program. But they'll still be requiring more support from the state and everybody involved. And in fairness, there were lots of people, including from the Diaspora Commission, the fan team, and everybody, even from corporate Nigeria, that were on ground on that day. But it shouldn't stop there. I think the thing is for us to be able to follow up to see whether the numbers were hitting the numbers and we're being able to reintegrate them into the society, provide jobs where necessary, and to be able to get people who have skills started, even as minimal as possible. But these are all of the things that the DG of Naihoto, Dr. Abisoye Fagade, is committed to.
So before I yield to my colleague, there are people that, because we had a conversation with the acting the consulate in South Africa about the losses that were recorded by some of these people. The conversations you're having with them in this welcoming them back, what about legal intervention in terms of some of the recoveries that are required, some of their cars, their shops, their homes, and all of that?
Well, I think there are other organs of government. We have a very powerful Minister for Foreign Affairs who can take care of all of those things. What we've only limited ourselves to was to say, okay, look, this mob, this anti-immigrant mob in South Africa, they found a way to get our people out of the country. And then we just thought, since Naihoto actually certifies professional within the travel and tourism space, it was a good opportunity for them to show first-hand example of how to welcome people back. And I think that was done. And even under the very heavy downpour, people were undeterred and were able to carry out that exercise effectively.
Now, from what you have said, the Naihoto concept is a hospitality strategy, and which cashes in on, the challenge in South Africa and converts it into a sort of love message for our own brethren who have experienced difficulty and are back home, and we want to make them have a sense of belonging and, be seen, if I get you correctly. Now, beyond that, if we can extract more values from this strategy to, doing a sort of laundering of the image of Nigerians internationally, not just in South Africa, because I was reading just yesterday something about, an anti-immigrant sentiment about Nigerians, even in the United Kingdom. I don't know how concerning or nationalistic in outlook that one is particularly, but how can we adopt this message to, ensure that Nigerians are seen differently globally against the backdrop of these many concerns about the disregard and disrespect for Nigerians in many countries of the world?
Well, thank you very much. That's actually a very important point. I mean, let's just know that, look, the whole spirit of nationalism is spreading across the world. Not actually, the anti-immigration sentiment is not specifically targeted at Nigeria. I think it's much more of a global thing. And this tends to happen mostly when there is economic headwinds that countries all over the world are facing. And if you look at the global economy today, you see both from the UK, the Americas, and everybody's going through it. So all of the economic crunch we are feeling in Nigeria is not an isolated case. And when that happens, people start to look for who to blame, and that's what has happened. But I mean, having said that, I think one of the things we must do as maybe as a build on to what Naihoto has and us have carried out with this welcome home message is to begin to do certain kind of national branding exercise that will help show up the image of the country and the national pride. And there are so many areas where Nigeria is actually best in class. I think we don't talk about it constantly enough for it to percolate down into the media space that are controlled by the Western media. But once we start to develop those kind of campaigns that will reinforce those kind of messaging, it will take attention off of the negative sentiments that foreign media like to play up when they talk about Nigerians. And I think once we're able to do that successfully, we'll be able to give Nigerians a good sense of pride anywhere they are in the world.
Well, let me just quickly ask you, perhaps, for those who are back, just how excited are they? What are the kind of conversations they're having with Naihoto, especially when they look at all of the stories in the news, the kidnappings, issues around insecurity here and there, the issues around the economy, power, and all of that. But what exactly are they saying to you?
Well, I mean, excited is maybe an overstatement in this very dire situation. But I think the thing is, if you have been chased by anti-immigrant mobs outside your country, and at some point your life was actually on the line, I think there must be that sense of relief coming back to a country and see a group of people who are who opened their arms and welcomed you in a very joyous way possible. Don't forget that in this instance, some people actually did lose their lives in South Africa, and I think conversations are at a high bilateral level to see how we can discuss all of those issues. But I think for them, I saw relief on the faces of people who came back to say, look, at least we made it back. And most importantly, we made it back and we did not pass through the corridors of the airport like a thief in the night. We saw a group of people that were on ground to welcome us and to receive us warmly. I think that must do something for the psyche of the people coming back. That is a first step. But the follow-up step will be how we can continue to liaise with them and make sure that they resettle and give the people who have skills and the right opportunity for them to start and kickstart their careers in Nigeria.
I think you've spoken a lot about these returnees, and we're grateful that everybody was on board to make sure they feel welcome and warm and welcome. But just for the benefit of having you here, just in like 30 seconds, if you can help us. I know a very long time ago, I read something that you wrote, if I'm correct. You said Nigeria is a disparate cluster forced into a homogenic template. I don't know whether I remember that quote by you.
I don't remember that.
I remember very well.
It doesn't sound like something that I would have written anyway, but yeah, and let's even assume that that is the case. I think it might just be, wherever that quote came from, it might just be an attempt. And you see, we're not the only multi-ethnic nationality in the world. You see, even in the United States of America, we'd like to refer to all of those places. If you see the huge fight between all of the interest groups in America, it's huge. So, but the thing is, it is not about the divisions that we have in the country. It's about how we are able to use to gather all of the best part of all of the different ethnic groups to form a nation. And I think that is what we must work on, because just me paraphrase one of my favorite presidents of America, Bill Clinton. He said, "There's nothing wrong with America that cannot be fixed with what is right with America." So I say, in the same spirit, there's nothing wrong with Nigeria that cannot be fixed with what is right with Nigeria. I think if we let that sink in and we take that and work with it, Nigeria in our lifetime will become a very powerful nation.
Whether or not you wrote it, maybe Jeff will go investigate and pull out.
No, he said it. He said it. I just wanted to be sure that we have made progress. That's what I wanted to find out.
Okay. But we have to leave it here. Well done to you and your team for a great job you're doing for those evacuees and Nigerians who have returned home. And as we expect more Nigerians, please keep making them smile and feel welcomed. Steve Babaiko is the creative partner, My Hotel Welcome Home Project. Thank you indeed for your time. He's joined us live from the UK.
Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
All right, it's the last lap of the conversation, and we have, well, a big fish in the house, Bukola.
Indeed we do, and he is Oba Sulaiman Bangbade, the Edun Alaka III, Adimula of Awori Kingdom, Olofin of Isheri, and he's also the Assistant Secretary, Southern Nigeria Traditional Rulers Council. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have royalty in the house this morning. Oba Adimula, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
You're trading all of your titles will be a mouthful, so I chose you.
We had to yield to her so that I don't destroy anything. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kabisi.
Okay, so this conversation is geared towards, our continued efforts to get consensus opinion on the state police conversation, or perhaps, expanding the diversity of views that have come through, especially since the president transmitted the state police bill to the National Assembly. So this time around, we're taking views from the traditional institution. And thank you, sir, for coming through on this particular one. And so it seems to be getting, accelerated consideration at the National Assembly, with the House of Reps now this time around adopting Mr. President's version of the state police bill. So it looks like it's halfway through where it's taking us to. What are your projections about what the state police bill, when it becomes law, institutionally, what are your projections about what it would look like?
Thank you for having me once again. I think we actually should have gone this route a very long time ago, because policing ourselves and our people should have been localized a long time ago. And the role of traditional rulers in this should not be underestimated, because we are actually the people that are closest to the people. We get first-hand information from our people directly. And recently I was the secretary of the committee set up to produce the bill for the constitutional rule for traditional rulers. The committee was headed by the Emir of Lafia, retired Supreme Court Justice Baggy, and a host of other traditional rulers from everywhere in Nigeria. So we came up with our constitutional rule, and part of it was that traditional rulers should form a part of the Security Council, both at the federal, at the state, and at the local government level. And if I recall from what is being thrown around the social media pages, the constitution of this council includes these traditional rulers because it's very necessary. The information we have should actually be given straight to the security agencies and the people in charge of our security. So I think right now this state policing, it's due, and it's something important that we should take very important. And I think the president has done the right thing by transmitting this bill, and the lawmakers who are actually doing the right thing.
So from the point of view of traditional rulers, if you were to form a part of the council that you talk about, or those required to give input into what the state police architecture should look like, what would be the input provided by traditional rulers? What would you think that this state police architecture requires for it to be a success?
I think it requires all hands on deck. You see, the security agencies need information to work with. No matter the multi-levels we create, if there's no information for them to work with, it will always boil down to this scenario again. And by giving traditional rulers the constitutional role and being part of the State Security Council, both at the local government and at the federal level, they will have more information at their disposal. You know, individuals, people, they feel more at ease coming to the palaces to come and report issues. I know I get a whole lot of these things too, so it's important that every stakeholder in our country is being carried along and they are being embedded in this new bill that has been considered by the National Assembly and the Presidency.
So let's talk about specifically what you're doing at the moment that can be grafted into all, because sometimes it's not really that anything new is done. It's just things have been existing, but it's not being institutionalized at your domain or within your domain. What has been done that you think that with the coming in of this bill that is going to be an act of parliament, sorry, it's going to be part of the Constitution, by the way, because it's an amendment to the Constitution, the state police. What are you doing within your kingdom that you think can help accelerate the level of security two ways, intelligence and the men on ground to be able to do the work?
Okay, I would give you an instance. The first issue I ever dealt with when I was installed as the Olofin of Oriire was the situation of some people came to my palace to come and report that there were actually some people fishing along our Ogun River channel in an unorthodox manner. You know, they barricaded the water. And they were fishing in a manner that fishes were not allowed to swim upwards the river. So when they came to me, they wanted to go and attack those other people. So I had to consult the police officers who arrested these people and brought them to my palace. So when they came, they were actually, none of them could speak Yoruba, this part of our country here. They were from the northern part of the country, and they were fishing in a manner that was affecting people, the indigenous of this community, who were ready to attack them. So I was able to involve the police. They were arrested. They were made to make some undertakings that they will not engage themselves in this kind of act again. So these are things that they bring to the palace that ordinarily, you know, they feel relaxed and they believe we act faster and we act traditionally to resolve this kind of issues. If I had not intervened, you would have heard, maybe you would have heard about fishermen attack or something along this Ogun River channel. So that's why I said we as traditional rulers too need to be included. And I remember when we were drafting the bill, the Emir of Lafia, like I said, is the retired Supreme Court Justice Emir Baghi. He was of the opinion that we should have traditional rulers in these security councils. At least the chairman of the National Council should be at the federal level, the chairman of the state should be at the state level, and at the local government level, the chairman of that local government traditional council should be involved in the Security Council of.
Can we say, I wonder, I mean, I like the fact that there's that unity amongst you traditional rulers, especially, you know, these fights proposing that traditional rulers are recognized in that framework constitutionally. So I like that unity between the North and the South. But what we wonder that when you look at the North and the peculiarities of the North and the region, will that framework would it suit the southern part of the country? That's my first question. Maybe the second would be that there are those who think that, you know what, traditional rulers, to a large extent, some of you are complicit in all of these issues around insecurity. I wonder how you respond to that.
Well, your first question, the North and the South, we have our differences, but the security situation we have is similar in all its aspects. You see that the first people that are being abducted by these bandits or whatever you call them are the traditional rulers, because they understand the role we play in our communities. And you know, we are always on ground. You don't have a traditional leader that lives outside his domain. We are always on ground, so we understand the situation of most of these things. So bearing in mind all of this, we believe that this security architecture that is being put in place now, this state policing bill will actually work for us if we are being considered as part of this thing. Then for those that think traditional rulers are relics of the past, no. We are actually what is used to remember who we are. We are the custodian of the culture and history of our people, and the role we play in the economy. It's not something that should be pushed aside. I think we are very important, and we should be given some kind of recognition.
Well, I think the preceding or follow-up point that he made was that there are concerns that some traditional rulers are complicit in some of the security concerns that we have had. And, you know, in addition to that, we have had reports in some parts of the country where, you know, some traditional rulers were fingered in providing information to bandits who attacked their communities, you know, hence some of the attacks that we have seen. So what are your thoughts on that? Perhaps you have insider information.
Yes, we have these informations that some traditional rulers are complicit in these situations, but I don't think it's true. No traditional ruler would want his town or his community raided by these terrorists or these bandits, whatever we call them. But the situation is when you have these informations and the security operatives are not on ground for you to pass this information to, you know, it becomes, people see it as if you are complicit in all of these things because you get this information, then what do you do with it? So that's where people think they are complicit in these actions, but they are not. And that is why we are saying if these traditional rulers are represented and are part of this security architecture, you know, once this traditional ruler gets this information, it passes it to the chairman. The chairman has an express way of giving it to those involved and those that should operate on it. But I don't think any traditional ruler would agree to his community or his territory being raided. I don't agree to it.
There's one other controversial issue I would like to address, since we have the benefit of the KBS in the studio, and it's, I don't know whether when I was growing up, but I wasn't aware enough. But now that I'm this age, I'm aware to know I'm doing what I do, which is the fact that there's been this agitation, maybe not strongly, that there has to be a way to insulate the traditional institutions from political interference. Because now we can see governors just depose people. They just depose our traditional rulers. Some they accuse them, just like you said, some traditional rulers are involved in insecurity. Some is just maybe a traditional ruler for whatever reason, had a nuance around supporting a particular candidate before an election. They look for a way to depose the person. Should we look for a way to insulate traditional rulers from politicians such that whoever becomes a KBAC and whoever becomes anything has no direct or indirect input from politics and politicians?
I think what you mentioned now has been taken note of by we, the traditional rulers too, because in the bill that we submitted to the House of Representatives, we actually added some clause there that traditional rulers are not allowed to attend political rallies, are not supposed to attend political parties. And we criminalized it, we made it an offense in the proposed, what we submitted to the House of Reps. And I remember too, we also added some kind of restrictions for traditional rulers from participating in all of these, you know, major political events. So we have also tried to insulate ourselves and make sure that traditional rulers don't get complicit in all of these actions, because we are to be seen as the father for all. Anybody who has aspiration, who has ambitions, should always come to the palace for royal blessings, because that's actually why we are there. So we shouldn't be supporting one person over the other.
That's very important, because so what if they totally insulate the traditional rulers from the politics? What about funding?
Well, I think that was also considered too while we were debating this role for traditional rulers, because What the traditional rulers benefit now is a decree from late General Sani Abacha that talked about 5% of local government funds should go to the traditional rulers. That's actually what's on ground now. Since then, nobody has touched or attended to it. Has not been reviewed, and I'm sure some states don't even adhere to that directive, but it's still there. Some states still benefit from it, and I'm grateful to the Ogun State governor because we still benefit from it.
But is that not part of the problem? When traditional institutions, rulers are on the payroll of government, then they're unable to speak truth to power. Hence, you know, the inevitable endorsement of candidates in elections, you know, by traditional rulers. Isn't that part of the problem?
No. If you have people who play a particular role in the society and it's not being funded, then you would actually have them seeking for funds in a way they are not supposed to seek. And that's where you have traditional rulers becoming land sellers and land grabbers to be able to partake in the functions of their office. But if it's well funded, then I think if it's in the constitution as it's something that's actually given that should happen and not going to seek cap in hand for funds, then I'm sure the traditional rulers will abide by these regulations that we are providing for them.
Totally out of time. Wow. We wish we could have more time. Bukola?
Indeed. And so I was hoping that then there were more posers for Kabiyesi, but we must anchor at this point. We have a lot more places to touch as far as, you know, the talking points from social media are concerned. We must thank you very much, sir, for coming on the program. We have been talking with the Oba of Isheri, Oba Sulaiman Bangbade. He's the Edun Alaka III Adimula of Awori Kingdom, and Olofi of Isheri. He also serves as Assistant Secretary, Southern Nigeria Traditional Rulers Council. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Kabiyesi. And happy birthday, belated happy birthday, and congratulations on your new palace.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you were all there.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at some of the things you've been talking about across social media. And I'm spoiled for choice, but let's, we understand there is a car, but I don't know where this happened.
No, Jeff, this happened yesterday while we were on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway.
Okay.
When we're done,
okay, you were there.
When we're done with our live crossings into the show, the morning break yesterday, we caught this car. This is exclusive to Channels TV. We caught this car on
is it a car, a motor, a vehicle? Which of them?
Okay. Well, it looks like a motor now. But we can show this to our viewers. Yeah. So this was just right there on the Long Bridge, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and I'm thankful that my cameraman eventually got this. So this tire, you see there, the tire to the back, the right back, has no tire. The tire at the back, there's no tire at the back of that vehicle, so we had to get that shot there. It happened right there on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. The Long Bridge precisely is where we had to film this happen, and we're just wondering about the dangers. Eventually we got stuck in traffic for a few minutes, but there you go, you can see that the vehicle continued, and we're just wondering, how was he able to manage this? This is exclusive to us. We're saying to us here, look, don't catch my face, but we had to catch his face actually.
Well, so some would say
maybe it's a mechanic or
the
something.
oddities that can happen in Nigeria do not exist.
Well, so that's something to chew on. Please, this is not all our, this is just, you know, what happens. Perhaps it's a mechanic trying to go fix the vehicle, but this also speaks to traffic management. They should have seen this and cautioned him, you know, because, I challenge a lot. Is it Loma people? No, not Loma, LASMA. The LASMA official, and the VIO, I think especially, VIS they call them. I said, the day I see yellow buses obey traffic, behave themselves, then I know you're working. I'm not saying you're not working, but that is going to be my litmus test.
The yardstick.
But we started from Ogun State anyway. We started filming him somewhere around Farmagoro. And then, of course, he drove into Lagos. We don't know what happened if he was eventually stopped in Lagos, but... All
right, we're totally out of time, but if we had time, we would have taken that comment. I think it was an important comment by Senator Shehu Sani, who wants to return back to the Senate, talking about the Senate is not going to be measured or judged by the bills they pass, the oversight work they do, but by what decisions they make in very controversial moments. I think it was an important reminder that you represent the people. Because we've seen the National Assembly unite on issues that divide Nigerians, and we ask ourselves, who are you really representing? That's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.
Sunrise Daily is up next, and stay with Channels Television all through the day, every day. I am Bukola Koka.
I'm Kelly Egige. Have a productive day. Bye now.